we're here for. That's what I live for. That's why I come up here to do this. Yes! Yes!
Yes. Thank you, Lord. With the bow, baby. In rifle season, Pennsylvania.
I just got my first eye with the bow.
Welcome back for the second Relive the Hunt podcast with your host Cole Mountain Sightsinger and Tom Titlow. This week we are going to dive into Tom's 2016 season. How's it going, Tom?
It's going well, Cole. I'm actually getting excited for this season. After I went out and did some summer scouting tonight and proved very successful. But we can talk about that at another time, and we'll dive into my 2016 emotional roller coaster of a season. So,
all right. Yeah, let's get started with your 2016 season and see where the story takes us. How did you prepare after turkey season? What did you prepare for when 2016 was kicking off?
Well, I went and secured some permission locally around my neighborhood, and I was able to get permission on a decent piece of property, which immediately I got in there, did some power scouting, and got some trail cameras set up, put some antler max out and some trophy rocks, and lo and behold, it turned out to be very successful. I had 3 hitless bucks right off the bat, and multiple other deer that were only 2 years old, year-old deer, but some great potential bucks, hoping that this year they're going to be even better. So it was very promising, but like I said, it was from the last podcast, I only had limited time to hunt in there from some restrictions. So I wasn't able to get in there how I would like. But as far as preparing that property, it was just setting trail cameras up and getting some protein out. The other properties that I have to hunt, same thing. Getting trail cameras out, setting them up in known locations where I would get pictures from year after year, and targeting specific bucks. But that was basically how I prepare every year. Just setting out trail cameras, getting trophy rocks out, and the mineral. Also, I have property that I can plan on, and I plan on getting food plots out every single year when the time permits, because it's difficult for me to get there. That's mostly how I prepare after turkey season.
Okay. You said you had 3 hitless bucks on the property closer to your home, and you were targeting some bucks that you knew. Take us a little deeper into that. What's considered a hitless buck for you, and did you have any history with any of the buck going into that season?
The first property locally, first time ever in there, no history with any of these deer. So I consider a hit lister. I'm going to put a score on it, even though I should do age. I want to shoot something that's 120 plus inches, which will typically put you in the 3-year-old range. So a hit lister for me is a 3-year-old deer or more. I think that's a very reasonable task in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, definitely in Pennsylvania.
Do that in PA. Other states, obviously you'd probably go higher, but PA, I'm going to stick with the 3-year-old deer for now. If I start doing that consistently, then I'll change it up. But anyway, getting off track there.
That's all right.
At the first property, no history. Other property, yes, ton of history. I chased a buck last year that I called Offspring, and he turned into a legend. I had him previously on trail cameras the year before, most likely the year before that as well, but I did not put that together. I would really have to go back and study a lot of trail cam pictures. I put the cameras in the same places that I had them in 2015, and I was able to get pictures of him all throughout August. He would show up. I almost had a date set in my head that around August 20th or so, this buck's going to show up on camera. And it was almost to the date he showed up on camera again.
So you had a good game plan then going after this buck. You had him back on camera. Describe the buck if you can. How old do you think this one was? How big was he? And a little bit maybe about the area he was living in.
This buck was a mainframe 10-pointer. He was a 10-pointer in 2015. No, actually, sorry, he was a 12-pointer in 2015. He had a couple kickers. And at that time, I believe he could have been a 4.5-year-old deer. Maybe a 3, but I'm going to go with 4. 2016, mainframe 10-pointer. He does not have any kickers. He got a lot heavier and a lot taller. And I'm going to say he was a 5.5-year-old deer in 2016.
Okay. So you followed him through the end of August, and I assume you were prepared to hunt that deer. Where did you kick off your season then? Was it back at home? Was it off, where this deer lived? Jump into your opening hunt.
So I was very excited about the property locally to my house. Very excited. Had some deer on there that probably were in the 140 range. So I was very excited to get out because opening day down here is 5D. And it was in September, mid-September. So the very first chance I could get to get out over this property, I went, and I didn't see a deer. And I was very confused. I'm like, I know that there's plenty of deer on this property, and I don't know why I didn't see anything. I set my stands up, I did all my homework, they should be coming this way, nothing. Well, I checked my trail cameras later that night after I pulled some cards, and there was trespassing on the property on opening day.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat. So that was a very, it was a downer, and I didn't expect it, but it opened up my eyes, and now I'm like, okay, well, I'm in for a real treat here because I didn't think it was going to happen. But I think I was more or less thinking that I didn't want it to happen and was being blind to the fact that it's a populated area. So.
Okay. Were you able to handle that situation at all? Were you able to talk to the landowner or do anything to try to prevent it?
Talked to the landowner, and every time I would receive a picture on my trail camera, I would submit it to him. He would contact the state police and just let them know what's going on. You couldn't really do anything because we weren't catching them red-handed. It was just photos of proof.
Yeah, so definitely heartbreaking.
Yes, very heartbreaking. Every time I check my camera, I'd have a new hunter on there. So, you know as well as I do that big bucks do not like pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the big bucks that I had, the ones that I were chasing, which I did end up naming these deer. I named the biggest one Bob Barker, and the other one was named Happy for Happy Gilmore, and the third biggest was Shooter McGavin.
Okay, awesome.
So Shooter
You're a golfer, I take it.
Yes, I do like to hit the links every now and then.
There you go.
So, and that movie is a great movie.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
So
Classic there. That's a classic.
it is a classic movie. So there's a lot of good names that you could name deer. If anybody wants to use that idea.
Yeah, you got to keep it fun, and you can't name them the same thing. Split G2 and Big Brow Time Buck, and yeah, you got to give them unique names.
So Shooter McGavin is the only deer that maintained his presence on this property throughout the whole entire season, all the way up until February.
But did you have any sightings with him later in the season on that property? We'll break it down to properties. We'll finish off that property and.
Yeah, that makes that makes a little bit more sense. So I'm not jumping all over the place here.
Yeah.
So this property, local, Shooter McGavin, the only deer that stayed consistent. I was able to lay eyes on him one day. Got in there on an afternoon hunt. It was a light rain that afternoon. And I snuck down in after work and forgot all my camera gear.
Those are the days it usually all happens.
And that's when I said to myself, this is when I'm going to see one of the shooters.
Yep.
And lo and behold, I climb up my tree, and not even 5 minutes later, I watch him get up out of his bed.
How far away was he?
He was probably about 80 yards.
Okay.
I can't believe I got in that close without spooking him.
You think the rain helped you get in quiet? And
It let me get in quiet, and I knew the deer bed in this area, and I did not want to penetrate any further. Like, I was on the very, very edge. And at this time, it was late. I think it was either first week in November. So I knew the rut was going on, so I did definitely want to get in close. But not too close, to bump any deer out.
yeah.
So I got in there kind of late, and he stood up about 80 yards away, and I'm like, oh my God, that's Shooter. And I did have my secondary camera with me, a little handy cam that I tie strapped to my camera arm. So I was able to get footage of him, and my heart is pounding because he's coming right towards my tree, like directly at me.
No, man.
And I'm thinking, this is going to happen, and it's going to happen because I forgot all my camera gear, and it's just going to make the story that much cooler.
Yep, absolutely. That's what happens.
So he's coming on a rope directly at me, and I didn't make any call, nothing. Just this is just happening off of pure luck. So he's coming, and then he changes direction, and he's walking broadside about 60 yards, and this area is kind of open, so I can get a 60-yard shot, but I don't want to take a 60-yard shot.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that he comes within 50 yards. I'll take a poke at 45. I'm pretty confident in my shooting ability up to 50. So even in the woods, it's tough. You don't want to take a shot that far typically.
Yeah, the closer the better, if you can.
If he's standing still, eating acorns out there 50 yards, I'm going to take a shot. So I'm getting ready because he's on the 50-yard trail. I ranged it. And he's just moving very slow. And he just takes a turn and goes directly away from me. Now I'm getting everything out. I got the grunt tube. I got the cal can. Wet, 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 wet. And he is not doing anything. Didn't even pay attention to me.
Do that one more time for me. I want to record that and use it.
Yes. I actually don't bring a grunt tube. I just do it all naturally by voice.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that would be pretty good. I'm sure there's people out there that do that all the time. So
I actually can do a grunt call, mimic a grunt call with my mouth pretty well without
off topic
anything.
a little bit, but last year I did grunt a 1.5-year-old buck in with my mouth, and I did it on purpose just to see if I could get him to come in.
It works. I've
Yep.
definitely used my natural voice of just grunting. I'll try and do it without sounding stupid right now, but
All right. Yep. That might
so
scare the little ones away, but that was
yeah,
pretty deep, so
it's deep. It's deep,
it's
but
all right.
I've definitely gotten deer and bucks to just stop dead in the tracks.
Yeah.
If they're running, I did that, they stop.
Nice.
So, shooter just kind of fed off away, and that was it. I didn't see him the rest of the night. I caught a glimpse of his tail flickering here and there, and that was that for him for that day. And that was early. You know what? No, I'm not. I forget if it was early November or like the third week in November. I honestly forget which, but it was in November. That's all I remember.
Yeah, the season stays open down there, right?
Yes, the season stays open in 5D up to, I think, up
All
to
the way up till rifle, right?
yeah, it stays open. I mean, it closes for the Sunday and then opens back up for rifle season that Monday. So
Yep. Yep.
it doesn't close. Just you're just allowed to use a gun one day to the next.
Yep.
So,
So is that it for the property closer to your home then? Or
on that
is-
property, yes, and then the very next day, actually, I hunted a property that I didn't hunt all season, and usually me and my buddy get in there early season every single year, shoot a couple does, and then keep hunting it.
Okay. And this
Well,
one's at home too, closer to
yes,
home.
and this is a small parcel, and I'm telling you, Cole, these small parcels are money. They're money because deer have to live in these parcels,
Okay.
and it's a little different down, hunting, these suburban deer. Um, they're kind of used to people. They're used to the smells, and they're used to all that. I'm not going to say it's easier, but it they seem to be less skittish.
Yep. Completely understand that. It's just two different styles of hunting those deer.
Yes.
So you have, bigger woods and farms, and then these suburban deer that's used to the traffic and stuff. So
Right.
yeah, take us into that if you don't mind.
So this piece of property, I hunted on. I remember the date was November 1st, and it was the first time I hunted this property all season. Did not penetrate this property once early season. Did not shoot any deer back there at all. Zero pressure. November 1st was the first day in the stand. I saw 5 different bucks and probably 4 or 5 different doe. All chasing, just constant action. It was one of the coolest afternoons I've ever had in a tree stand.
That's awesome.
It was unbelievable. I actually passed up the G2 buck that we talked about last podcast, where I have his
Yeah.
shed now.
You ended up finding his shed, just one shed?
Just one side. I found his
Okay.
right side.
Did you find it in the same property or?
No,
How
it
did
was
that go?
actually, I looked it up. It was 2 miles away in a straight line.
Wow.
Yep.
Just goes to show how much they travel even in those suburban areas.
Yes, I was very surprised that it was that far. But for a deer, that's not far. For you and I, that's pretty damn far.
Yeah, they can do that in one night.
Yep, no doubt. So, especially in the rut. So, yeah, passed up a really nice 8-pointer, 2-year-old. Passed up the G2 buck. He was also an 8-pointer. And then there was a couple spikes and 5-pointers that were running around. Awesome night. Next day, my buddy goes in there because he hunts this property with me. He shoots one of the smaller bucks. Because I told him, I said, there's a hot doe in there. Get over there if you have a chance. Because I was going up the mountains, I think.
Okay. So your buddy jumped in there the night after you passed the G2 buck.
Yep, and
shoots
he
a
ended
buck.
up shooting a 5 or 6-pointer. He's not into the quality management, I guess you could say. He just does it for the meat, not a trophy hunter, which is
Yeah,
perfectly
nothing wrong with
fine.
that.
Yep.
Yep.
So he went in, shot the first buck he had a chance at, legal buck, and he was able to harvest it. Went 50 yards, double lung shot, perfect game over. His season was done. He was very happy.
Awesome.
And so that doesn't end that spot here. So I go away for my week-long trip up my cabin.
Okay.
So I'm going to switch back to properties here. I'm going to switch up to cabin property.
This is timeline pretty much.
Yeah,
So
I'm
you
going to
passed
go.
the G2 buck. Now you're heading up to your camp where you are on this buck you call Offspring.
Yes. So we're going to backtrack a little bit, and we're going to go into the earlier parts of the season up north.
Chasing Offspring. Okay.
Chasing
Let's jump
Offspring.
into your first encounter or your first hunt that you were after that buck.
First hunt after this buck, opening day. I have a good idea what this deer's doing. I know where he's bedding. I know when. See, this is big woods, very big woods. So it's tough to really nail down a pattern at all.
Yep.
You got to get pretty lucky. So, but I knew the general area where he's bedding, and the only reason I knew this was because of data from the season before. So, I picked an area where I had a lot of good bucks on camera. Not so much Offspring on this camera on my first sit, but definitely the area for Offspring.
Based on the year before's information.
Yes. Never hunted Offspring on opening day before, but this was, anything could happen. Big woods, he could have showed up at any moment. I was in his area, not so much, I would say, his core area, though.
Yeah. And was there a reason you didn't dive right into his core area opening day?
Yes, because I wasn't quite ready. I didn't have a particular spot set up. I wasn't sure how the wind was going to be blowing, so I just picked a safe spot near the area, but not. I wasn't too concerned if the wind went wrong. I wasn't going to bust him.
Yeah.
And there was an opportunity that he could potentially walk by there, but it was a low, a low quality opportunity that he would come through.
Yeah. Yep.
I ended up seeing 2 bucks that I had on trail camera all season long, all throughout the summer. They showed up, and I was all pumped up. First day out, first afternoon. This is opening day in PA, statewide. Now.
Yeah. So this is still early. This is now
Opening,
the first week of October.
Yep, I think it was October 3rd. These 2 bucks come out, munching on acorns. I get a 40-yard opportunity at the 1 buck. He's probably a 3-year-old or a really good 2-year-old. I'm going to say he scored around a 110 to a 115. Really
Okay.
nice 8-pointer.
Yep.
I decided to pass, and that was a really tough thing for me because normally in the past I wouldn't have passed that deer. I've never really tried hunting for one specific deer ever in my life. This is the first year I'm doing it.
Yep. Okay.
So I decided to pass. And
So you passed him knowing Offspring was the buck that you were after.
I think that's when I realized that's the deer I wanted.
Yep.
Because I went into the season saying, oh, well, I'll shoot, a nice buck, if a 115 comes out, yeah, I'm going to shoot him. But then when I passed up a 115, that's when it set in. I said, I wouldn't have been happy with him because I really want Offspring.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I passed him. I wasn't upset. I was totally pumped that I saw 2 bucks. And one of them was nice, and I told myself, well, that was your opportunity for the season. I already had a great season, and it's an opening day. If I get one opportunity during the season to shoot a buck, a nice buck, I consider it a successful season.
Okay. Is that just because Pennsylvania's tougher to hunt, or you're used to filling a tag, on anything that's a nice buck?
Both. It's kind of goes both there. Pennsylvania's a little tough to hunt. The big woods are very hard to hunt, and me never passing up a buck like that before was a success to me. It made my season. I never did it, and I finally was able to do it.
Yeah, that's great. Most people in Pennsylvania would probably have loved to fill their tag on a buck like that. Some people go all season without seeing any deer.
Yes.
So when you put that into perspective, it's like, that's an accomplishment, and it's in itself when you get to the point where you're passing these buck now that other people would probably hang on their wall.
Absolutely. No, I don't think some of the guys I hunt with would have ever passed that deer up. Ever. So, they're going to, bust on me for passing it up, but hey, it is what it is. I put a lot of time in, a lot of effort, and I do a lot of homework.
Yep.
And I put myself in good situations. So I was confident that I will see another deer. I will get another opportunity. Whether it was at Offspring or not, or that same deer, I was pretty confident in my ability to get more opportunities.
Yeah. So that first hunt then ended, no sign of Offspring?
No sign of Offspring.
Did you have any encounters with Offspring throughout this season, or?
I did.
If you did, maybe let's jump into that hunt.
So, first encounter with Offspring. Never thought I was going to see this deer in my life. Because, it's just hard. It's so difficult.
Yeah, you can do everything right, and they still don't read the script. So
I was getting a lot of intel on Offspring in this one certain area, and I had set a stand up, and I knew he was bedding behind the stand. I don't know how far behind the stand he was bedding, but I knew he was bedding back there. I was getting daylight pictures of Offspring in early October, which, that typically does not happen at all for a buck of his caliber. And when I say buck of this caliber, I'm going to say he was a 5.5-year-old deer who scored in the 140s.
Yeah.
And that's a big deer in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. Yep. Especially at that age,
Yes.
At 5.5, anything doesn't matter. Score. They're older, smarter. Just they're big deer, and just seeing them is tough.
So I'm in my stand. I see a doe come up from behind me, to my left, and she comes up and she's standing there 25 yards away. I'm like, oh, all right, here's a deer. I get ready. I get my bow and I get my camera gear. I'm filming her, and I peek around the back of the tree, and I'm like, oh my god!
Took your breath
and
away.
I immediately knew it was Offspring, and I said, I couldn't believe it. I started shaking like a leaf.
What time of the year was this?
The first encounter was October 20-something.
Okay.
Might have been in the teens, late teens or early 20s on the date of October. I couldn't believe my eyes. I said, it's Offspring. No way. And he's coming up 30 yards away. I'm like, I'm getting a shot at this deer. I'm getting a shot. I'm gonna kill Offspring right now.
Yeah. Yep.
And this is so, like, so many emotions are running through me right now. I'm pumped. I'm nervous as hell, and shaking. And I'm like, oh. And I'm watching this doe, and the wind is perfect. The wind's coming the wind's perfect. He's not going to smell me. So all of a sudden, I'm getting ready, and I got the camera on him. I got the camera on the opening of where he's going to come in. And it's going to be a 30-yard shot. I ranged it. I'm not paying any attention to this doe anymore. He starts walking out. I'm like, here we go. And I'm getting ready. And all of a sudden, he trots through my lane, and he starts running up the hill. And I'm like, what the hell did I just do wrong? I'm like, what did I do? Did the wind
switch? As fast as he appeared, he was gone.
I'm like, did the wind switch? What happened? Did that doe see me getting ready to draw back? And I was beside myself and heartbroken. I was heartbroken. And I'm watching him run away up the hill. And I'm like, what just happened?
And so his sixth sense kicked in, and it was like he knew.
Well,
if he took any more steps, he was in trouble.
That's what it seemed like. I thought I screwed the whole thing up. But I went back and reviewed this footage probably about 4,000 times. And what I gather from it all is that doe got too far out of his sight up the hill. There was another buck up the hill, probably 80 yards away from me, that I didn't know was there at the time. I saw him later because he just stood there.
Okay.
So that doe was making her way towards that buck. Offspring knew that buck was there. Offspring was watching that doe. Offspring was following that doe out. Offspring went to go cut her off when she got closer to that deer, and he just ran up and say, buddy, she's mine. And he chased her away.
How many steps did you need before he did that?
Probably 3 more steps.
3 more steps, and you would have been drawn back and ready to shoot this buck.
The arrow would have been flying. If that doe would have just stayed where the heck she was, Offspring would have probably had an arrow in him by me. At 30 yards.
Wow.
So I'm sitting down, I'm beating my head against a tree. I can't believe I just messed this up. Beating myself up, cursing at myself, everything. Because I'm thinking I screwed the whole thing up.
Yeah.
So I go back and tell the guys I had an encounter, and they're like, no way, can't believe it. Everybody's pumped up because they know I've been hunting this deer. I've been hunting them hard, setting up tree stands, playing the wind, only going in there on prime days, and just didn't work out. And I thought I screwed it all up, but lo and behold, I didn't. So then, that was encounter number 1. 3 days later, a cold front comes through, and I'm watching the weather, I'm looking at the pressure. Cold front comes through, high pressure. What's that mean, Cole?
That means buck are going to be on their feet, and you need to be in a tree stand.
Yep. So what did I do? I took off work, and I drove up to the mountains.
Nice. Do you always pay attention to the weather, or do you hunt when you can, or do you hunt based on weather mostly?
I hunt when I can, but if I see a weather pattern that's very favorable for me, I will take the opportunity and take advantage of that.
Okay. So you got killer weather, you're heading to the mountain 3 days after your encounter with him.
Yep. And I get in the same tree stand I was in.
Because at this point you realize you didn't spook that deer.
I didn't spook him.
That he was just chasing a doe, and the timing didn't work out.
Right. Get back into the same spot. I'm in there early. The wind's perfect. Everything. I mean, it's a beautiful morning. It's the coldest morning I think I've hunted all year so far. It's great. And the rut is just starting to kick in. So, I have a wide 6-pointer come by who I track around pictures of all season. He comes by 20 yards away. Pass him up. Shooter buck for a lot of people.
Yep.
And then later that morning, I got does rolling through. I got small bucks chasing doe by 4-pointers, 5-pointers. It's just mayhem's happening this day, and I'm like, I'm so glad I took off work. This who cares about the money I'm losing right now?
So at this point, you made a successful decision.
Yes, you know what? That's the second buck I passed up this season. Nice wide 6-pointer that normally I wouldn't have passed up, and he's at 20 yards.
Yep.
So I'm like, man, that's great. I had another opportunity. Cool, man. I'm pumped. This season's awesome. So he goes away, and then all these other deer are filtering through, and then it kind of quiets down, like 8:30. Nothing's been happening for a good 45 minutes. I was seeing deer every 15 minutes, it seemed like. So 9 o'clock rolls around, and I'm kind of just goofing off in my tree stand, texting, filming myself, making funny faces. And I look up, I'm like, oh man, there's a deer. And I'm like, oh, that's a buck. And I'm filming him, and I don't know this is offspring yet. I'm like, man, this is a really nice buck. He's a shooter. He's a shooter. Whether it's offspring or not, I'm shooting this deer.
Yep. How far away was he?
I first saw him at like 60, 70 yards, and he's coming down right towards me. And I get the camera on him, and I zoom in. I'm like, oh my God, it's offspring. I'm like, no way. 9 o'clock in the morning, Cole. 9 o'clock.
Yeah, a couple hours after daylight.
Yeah.
And he's cold front, and he's on his feet.
Coming through, nose on the ground. I'm trying to get a lane. I'm thinking, all right, you're gonna come right down, pass by me at 30 yards. I'm gonna drill you. Well, he's coming in. He stops, and he's going. And now he's staying like 40, 45, 50. Never gave me a clear shot ever. Never stopped long enough to give me an opportunity to shoot him. And it was, now I'm in the woods here, and it's not easy shooting this far. Like I said earlier, I'm not taking that shot.
Yeah. Especially on a buck of that caliber, or any buck, you wouldn't want to take it, but you're being extra careful.
Not taking a shot. He gets up to about 50 yards. He stops. I'm like, I can't get an arrow through there. So now he's passing. He's up, and he's going to be passing me. I grunt. He keeps going. I grunt again. He keeps going. But now he's really looking hard. So I grunt again, and he's looking, and he wants to come down. And I think he knew, big deer are smart. He was going downwind of me. He circled downwind.
So you were being aggressive, grunting at him because you could tell the way he was reacting that, you weren't spooking him, but you almost had him on the line.
Yes. I'm trying to coax him in to just come check me out. 10 yards, and I'm going to shoot you. So he's circling downwind of me, and he's standing there downwind, probably 60 yards away. No opportunity to shoot or anything. And he's just standing there, and he don't smell me. I don't know how, but he does not smell me at all. He's not. I must be either going over him, or the wind just might be off just a little bit where it's just blowing past him.
Do you take any scent control?
I take scent control. I'm very religious with scent control.
Okay, so you're doing whatever you can to beat their nose.
Yes, anything and anything. I get a shower every morning. I spray down everything. All that, everything you can think of, I do scent control, wash my clothes, all of it.
Okay, yep, good. So he's downwind. So far he has not caught your wind.
He hasn't picked up on me. So then he just
probably hasn't smelled the deer either that he's looking for.
Right. And I wasn't using any type of scent either. So he just, I guess, loses interest and starts fading out and walking down that ridge line. And once he gets out of sight, 1 to 2 minutes go by, and I can't see him anymore. And then all of a sudden he starts blowing. He's like, and I'm like, he caught my wind. You know, finally.
Yeah,
But
that's heart sinking.
it was.
To hear that, and you're pretty sure it was him. It wasn't another deer.
It was definitely him. It had to be him.
Yeah.
And I like, again, my heart sunk, and I'm like, man, I'm probably never going to see him out of this tree stand ever again.
Yeah. At that point, were you questioning whether or not you should have tried to grunt at him, or it wouldn't have mattered either way? You were trying to get the job done that day, or you didn't know if you would ever see him again?
I was trying to get the job done that day because of one reason and one reason only. Because of the data I had from him from the year before. During the rut, he moves out of his core area and he starts moving far. And I know which kind of areas he was going to be moving into. I needed to kill him then while I was on the hottest and most fresh, data that I was getting from him.
Yeah, before he started roaming all over for the rut.
Before he really started roaming. And I had cameras already set up in the areas where I thought he was going to be during the rut.
Okay.
So, that was a second missed opportunity, I guess you could call it. I mean, I had an opportunity. There wasn't really no shot, so I can't say I had a good shot opportunity at this deer yet.
It was a good encounter.
Very good encounter. This was the best footage I got of him. It was I had really great footage of him.
Yeah.
So now, that afternoon, a nice 9-point buck comes in, and I actually nicknamed him Acid Reflux. This deer was growling and grunting like he owned the whole entire mountain. Now I'm like, I've never heard any of this before. It's some of the coolest audio and footage I've ever gotten in my life. If I would have told you this story without having it on camera, nobody would ever believe me.
Yeah, I think I know the sounds you mean. I've only ever heard it one other time in the woods where buck actually was snort wheezing and growling. But so you had this going on right in front of you pretty much.
Oh yeah, this deer walked by 25 yards away, and I just, after seeing offspring, this deer looks like a baby now.
Yeah, it was offspring or bust.
Yeah, so I'm like, whatever. But it was really cool experience to see this happening, and the way this deer was grunting and growling and roaring, everything. It's just, I've never seen it ever in my life, and it was just really neat experience.
Yeah.
So, in one day that I take off, I had passed up 2 bucks and had a great encounter with my hit list buck offspring.
Yep.
Worth every penny that I didn't make that day.
Was that your last encounter with him? Was there more? Did you get a shot at this buck?
Unbelievably, no, this is not my last encounter with him. So, after that, I have a Halloween party at my house. I can't go hunting for a little while. Now, it's archery week. Me and my family take off 1 week during the rut. Whether it's the first week or second week, we usually kind of look at the moon, weather conditions, all that stuff. We kind of take that in consideration of when we're going to take the week off for best prime opportunity to harvest a deer.
Okay.
We do it every year. We've been doing it for a long time. So I get up there, I check my trail cameras, and sure enough, offspring is on my trail camera where I thought he was going to be in the rut. And I said, the bastard moved on me. I'm like, I'm not going to kill him out of that tree stand. I got to move now too. So I made them switch. I moved on him. And the very first day that I made the move, when the wind was in my favor, I got into my stand that afternoon. Got set up. I made I was probably sitting there maybe an hour. It was still early in the afternoon. It was probably like 3 o'clock. I made a few grunts, put my call away, sitting there, and then off to my right, probably within 3 minutes of me ending the grunt series, I see a big body moving through, coming towards me. I'm like, that is a buck. I know it's a buck. Just by the body size, the color, like, the bucks seem to be they just seem to always be a different color than the doe.
Yeah, you can just tell when you see
Yeah.
a buck walking, whether it's the way
Like-
they move or the size.
And I said, that's definitely a buck. And he's coming in to check out this grunt. So I see him. I'm like, all right, it's a buck. I'm like, and that's a shooter buck. And I don't know that it's offspring again. And I said, that looks like a really nice 8-pointer. Tall, high, heavy. I'm like, I'm shooting him, you know. Whether it was offspring or not, I didn't know at the time, and I was going to kill this deer, knowing that offspring was still around.
Okay. So he was big enough to make you grab for the bow and get ready.
Yes. Well, I turned the video camera on, I zoom in on him. I'm like, oh my God, it's offspring.
Getting that second look always pays off.
Yes. So I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. 3 times now? 3 times? Third time's a charm, baby. This is going to happen. And he's coming down the trail that's going to put him 15 yards standing there broadside.
Did you just hang this tree stand that day?
I hung this tree stand on opening day, and this is where I saw those 2 bucks that I passed up opening day.
Okay, so you're back in that stand, and he's there. So he's coming in.
He's coming. And he's coming down the trail that's going to put him, like I said, 15 yards away. And I'm pumped. I'm like, this is going to happen. And the very first time I seen offspring, I was a nervous wreck. The second time, I was a lot calmer than I was the first time.
Yeah, you were ready to kill him the second time for sure.
Yes. And the third time, it's just pure game face. I'm ready. The nerves haven't set in. It's, all right, it's you and me, brother. It's go time, you know? So he's coming down. I'm like, all right, this is perfect. So he starts angling away again. I'm like, oh my goodness. Why is this deer always doing this to me? I'm like, oh, well, at least he's not angling away 55 yards away. He's angling away 35.
Yep.
So I'm getting ready to draw. He's behind this tree, and he stops. And he's just standing there behind this tree. And he's 35 yards away.
Oh, my God. Was your heart pounding out of your chest yet?
Yes, and I'm ready. I'm like, I was probably standing there half draw. You know, not even realizing it because I was just that ready.
You're so ready, yep.
So I'm getting ready to draw back. Everything's perfect. Got the camera lined up, everything. And he just runs right through my shooting lane again. And I'm like, what? What?
This deer definitely has a sixth sense on you.
He had to have. And now he goes out. And I quick get my rangefinder out, and I'm like, that bush is 50 yards away. If he stands at that bush, I'm shooting. It's a wide open lane. Well, he's going right for that bush. I'm drawing back. I'm ready. I'm on there. He goes and he stops right at the bush at 50 yards, but on the other side of it. I can't put an arrow through the bush. So that was the only time I was able to draw back my bow and offspring. Well, guys, that will conclude part 1 of a part 2 podcast. I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. Be sure to check back in for podcast number 3, where we finish the rest of my season. It's definitely been a roller coaster, and I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am.
We are going to do a featured hunter Friday. We've been doing it for a couple weeks now. If any of the featured hunters want to be on the podcast, reach out to us. If anybody wants to be a featured hunter, reach out to us. We're just going to share pictures and stories and do that. So look for that and like us on social media. Subscribe to us on YouTube. It'll be a while, but we will eventually have the podcast running up on Stitcher and iTunes. Right now, it's just going to be through our YouTube channel. So I had fun, Tom, and we'll see you next time.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Peace out.
See you. Did you hear that?
Did you fart? That's a good one.
It's recording.
Yeah, I
too.
know.
That's awesome.
That's definitely going into the podcast.